Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you are new, my name is Rosalie and thank you so much for visiting Satina Country Cottage. Today I have a treat for you all. I have another beautiful home to share with you. This home today is owned by Jeff and Susan Strandiford. Now they actually own an antique store in Shelbyville, Indiana. So if you are within driving distance, you should go check them out. You're going to fall in love with Susan's style, all the antiques that they offer on their website. Yes, they actually have a website of all their antiques that Susan posts almost on a daily basis on Instagram and Facebook. I will go ahead and link everything for you down below in the description box so you can check out all the wonderful goodies that they have to offer if you can't make it physically to their store. They ship, so it is just a real treat to find an antique shop that has their own website and they will ship it directly to you. So that is awesome. So I cannot wait to share their antique farmhouse with you all. So let's get ready and enjoy the tour.
Hello, and welcome to our home. I'd like to first thank Rosalie for inviting us to be part of her spring home tour series that's on her YouTube channel. We're very humbled and excited to be a part of it. We live in an old farmhouse out in the country. It was built in the mid-1920s. We've lived here a little over 30 years and have literally touched every surface. In fact, a few years ago, the state road on which we live was going to be widened, so we had the house picked up and moved back 70 feet. At that time, we also added a full finished basement and a wraparound porch. We'll share pictures of that process at the end of our tour. Our house had been remodeled and updated prior to us purchasing it, but as styles and tastes change, the remodeling tends to be a never-ending list of projects, especially in an older home. We actually have a couple projects that we're currently still working on, so we're unable to do a total walkthrough tour. Although we lean toward a more primitive colonial style, our home is very eclectic as we have a lot of family treasures that we try to incorporate into every room. In the living room here, we have an antique desk by our front door, which was one of the first antique pieces we bought after I discovered my love for all things old. We have a little red chair that my dad had as a child. He's now 93. It's found a perfect spot next to the TV cabinet. We also have an old fern table that we use at the end of the couch. It had belonged to my grandmother. Our coffee table was originally an early tavern table, and we did something very taboo by cutting off the legs. I really loved the piece though, and couldn't find another place for it anywhere in the house. Lastly, the grandfather clock, although not an official antique, was our first big furniture purchase after we were married. In the background, you'll see a peek of our formal dining room. It's the pass-through room into our eat-in kitchen. Here in the dining room, we added wainscoting and frame molding over the winter months. Even with the darker paint color added to the lower half of the wall, we can't believe how much it has opened up the room. It ended up being a very fun project because we had all the supplies on hand and didn't have to spend any extra money. On this hand-painted half-round table, we have some old oil lamps which were also family items. We have a few reproduction pieces of Americana art and some handmade tinware in this room, as there's a hint of a patriotic theme in here. 3 or 4 years ago, we included some additional black accents to our home. Here we've added a shelf above the door into my office. Yes, my office is directly off the dining room, so I'm very fortunate to have a door here. We weren't sure how the black accents would go with our white woodwork, but we really like it. We painted the early handmade cupboard with Annie Sloan graphite because although it was a solid piece, the finish was in bad shape. I store some of our grandmother's quilts inside. I usually keep the table set, changing it seasonally, and quite often use blackened wax accents on the plates. We acquired the rocking horse this past year and found the ideal spot for it on top of the china cabinet. Oh, how we'd love to replace this furniture piece. We've been on the hunt for quite a while for an antique cabinet instead. I'm hoping this will be our lucky year. Inside, we display some pewter and redware pieces. The little wooden spoon rack to the right of the cabinet houses a couple antique spoons, and then I've also added our boys' first spoons. Well, just because. The chair in the corner was my grandpa's favorite chair, the first recliner, if you will. A few years ago, a neighbor lady helped me reupholster it. I quickly found that reupholstering is no easy task. I'm so fortunate to have had her help so it was done correctly. The ornate oak deacon's bench belonged to my mother-in-law. She once told me that it was sitting on a stranger's front porch getting weathered on, so she stopped to ask if she could buy it. She ended up paying just $18 for it. The antique schoolhouse clock is another passed-down family treasure. I vaguely remember at some point that it had been painted silver and someone stripped it, taking a toothpick to get into all the grooves. Isn't it funny how styles change? On the plate rack above the cupboard, we have several old wooden kitchen items from both sides of the family. The area under the stairway was open when we purchased the house. It was always such an awkward space. And actually, our boys loved playing under there for years. But after they grew up, we added the fireplace. We originally wanted a gas log set, but there was some kind of issue installing and hooking it up, so we decided to opt for an electric set instead. We're looking into ideas to make this area have a little more primitive colonial flair. It may be a time for us to get out our sketchbook again. We have a couple older samplers hung on the wall going up the stairs. We love the look that samplers bring to a room, but I'd like to replace them with more primitive ones someday. This is the room where all of the big family dinners take place. Part of our ongoing projects are in the master bedroom and bath area, so we can't show but part of this room. We have a couple early antiques in this area of the house. Both the immigrant's trunk and the handmade cupboard were items from our shop that just didn't happen to sell, so we decided to give them a home. The immigrant's trunk dates back to 1877. After the color blue craze in decorating went out of style, I decided to add this toile wallpaper. It may be more of a French country look, but I have always admired it and thought that it went well for an original farmhouse bedroom. In one corner of this room, I've hung our boys' kindergarten silhouettes as well as a bronze handprint plaque from when my husband was a toddler. The twig plant stand is a passed-down item from my father's family. It was made during the Depression era. My dad mentioned that people would sit along the roadside and make them to sell. We chose to put the bed on an angle several years ago due to the many windows and doors that we have to work around. We love the different dimension that it gives to the space. In the corner behind the bed, we have an antique picture of Abe Lincoln in its original glass and frame, along with one of our grandmother's plant stands. On the shelves, there are old family books and a pair of my grandpa's glasses, or spectacles as he called them. The shutters were already on the bedroom windows when we purchased the house. I originally thought that I would take them down, but as time went on, I really grew to love them, and I'm so glad that I decided to keep them. Just a few years ago, we hung the valances above the windows, and since we have 9.5-foot ceilings, it has really seemed to give the room that final touch and open it up. We have a little antique oak commode, complete with stoneware pot, and a silverware tea set by the bed, which both belong to my mother. As they've gotten up in age and downsized, we've received quite a few family heirlooms. I mentioned the handmade cupboard earlier. It seems to cross a couple different time periods and isn't perfect, but maybe that's what I like most about it. We did something a little different on the accent window by adding an indoor flower box. I saw the idea several years ago in a Martha Stewart magazine and loved the way it brings the outside in. The older light fixture hung over my grandma's dining room table for as long as I can remember. It will be hanging above a clawfoot tub when the project is complete. Above the cupboard, I put a few textiles for a pop of color, as well as a handmade basket rack and 3 antique baskets. And of course, candlelight brings the best ambiance to any room, so the steeple lantern fits in perfectly. Our kitchen is at the rear of the house. Everyone always comes in our back door, so this room gets a lot of traffic. We're very thankful for the wood floor because it sure takes a beating. We recently replaced the door between the back entry and kitchen with an antique farmhouse door. I love the old chippy paint and the wavy glass. We have a set of patio doors in this room. They let in a lot of light, although we don't use them very often. Our kitchen is a fairly good-sized room and has a bar and eat-in area, which comes in handy around the holidays. We realize that wallpaper isn't too popular anymore, but we still have some. We added the border up at the ceiling to showcase the galley rail shelf we added years ago. We have several more family items in this area, including my grandma's daisy butter churn, her old woman-in-the-shoe cookie jar, and a few crocks. The picture on our wall, hanging with the 3 blue bowls, used to belong to Grandma Standiford. I always remember it hanging in her kitchen. She passed away at 99 years old. The antique corner cabinet was another one of our recent projects. We found it over the winter in downtown Indianapolis. It's from an early 1900s home. It's a built-in piece, so we had to make a back for it. It's a little rough, but we love its charm. I especially love the ornate top and opted not to put anything up there so it wouldn't distract from its beauty. I have all of our blue pottery pieces displayed in it at the moment. I only have a couple very old pieces, so I've mixed them in with some newer items that I acquired from my mother-in-law. On the other wall, we hung an antique shelf. It has been handmade and hand-painted. We showcase old spice tins on it. Another one of the first antiques we purchased was the early phone. When we first looked at the house to possibly purchase it, the previous owner had an antique phone hanging there but didn't want to sell it. So we just replaced it with another one. The primitive wooden coffee bin was one of our finds from last fall. It has original red paint and hand stenciling. It's great for stashing odds and ends. When we moved into the home, the cabinets were stained a very dark color and had crusty-looking silver hardware. They had a medieval type look to them. We wanted to lighten up the space and chose to sand and restain the cabinets versus painting them. We also added the crown molding at that time. Although it was quite an undertaking, we're still happy with our choice. We have a large pantry area and plenty of cabinet space. I also love the layout of the kitchen and the countertop area, but do wish that it was big enough for an island. I've always wanted an island, especially if it could be an old general store piece. Originally, above the kitchen sink, there was a scalloped piece of wood tying the cabinets together. Since that piece dated the house, and not necessarily to a then farmhouse look, we decided to put a shelf there instead. I change this area seasonally and usually include florals or greenery, crocks, and seed boxes. I also include a strand of lights to give it a warm glow. Someday I would like to put glass inserts on the 2 upper corner cabinet doors. Maybe we could use something that wouldn't be easily seen through and also add interior lights. I think that would add some character to the space. In the old kitchen, there was a stainless steel sink, but when we replaced the countertops with a solid surface material, we changed it to be integrated into the top. I was spoiled to the 3-bowl setup though, so we had to keep that feature. Above and to the left of the stove and oven area, there used to be a wine rack. We're not big wine drinkers, so my husband turned it into a shelf and plate rack area. We have a few more family treasures displayed in it, beloved pieces from both sides of the family. I have often heard that the kitchen is the heart of the home, and if that's true, then I wonder if the porches, decks, and patio areas are the soul. We spend a lot of family time outdoors in the summer months, and just love sitting by the fire pit in the evening on our patio.